Welcome in, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me today. Hope you guys are doing well and hope you had a good NFL Week 4 weekend. So, we got a lot of good stuff to talk about today. We had a pretty exciting week of NFL action. So, we're going to talk about the first game, which happened on Thursday Night Football, Seattle Seahawks versus Arizona Cardinals. We're going to take a look at the big matchup between Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens and Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. We also had another exciting game where Jackson Dart got his first start for the New York Giants, so that was exciting to watch. And we had a pretty awesome game on Sunday Night Football between Micah Parsons and the Green Bay Packers versus his former team, Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones. So it was a NFL weekend full of big games, a lot of action, and big headlines. So we got a lot of good stuff to talk about today. Before we do jump into that, I would like to mention that on my YouTube channel, I create content about money, sports, and personal topics with the goal of bringing value to other people's lives. So if you guys find value in this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel so that I can continue making these videos. All right, let's jump into NFL Week 4. All right, guys. So NFL Week 4 kicked off on Thursday with Thursday Night Football. We had a matchup in the NFC West division, Seattle Seahawks and Sam Darnold versus Arizona Cardinals and Kyler Murray. So in this one, looks like the Seahawks pulled out the win 23-20. They improved to 3-1 on the season, and the Cardinals dropped to 2-2. So let's take a look at some of the game leaders in this one. So for the Seahawks, Sam Darnold, he went 18 for 26, 242 yards, one touchdown, zero interceptions. He had a pretty good quarterback rating. And their wide receiver, Smith and Jigba, had four receptions for 79 yards. On the other side, for the Cardinals, Kyler Murray, 27 for 41, two touchdowns. He had two interceptions. And their wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr., had 66 yards receiving with a touchdown. So this wasn't the most exciting game of NFL Week 4, but it was the first game, so I just like to start with the first game. So in this one, Sam Darnold had a pretty good game. So they're 3-1 on the season. The Seahawks are, so they're playing really well. Sam Darnold, he had a really good season last year with the Vikings, and going into this season, we weren't sure if that was just like a one-off year where he had a really good season, but that going forward, he's going to kind of revert back to his old days where he wasn't that good. But Sam is playing pretty good this season for the Seahawks. He's continuing his good play from last year. He's got the Seahawks 3-1 in the division. And even though they're not one of the best teams in the NFC, the Seahawks are a solid team, and I think they're going to have a good season overall. For the Cardinals, they dropped to 2-2. Kyler Murray had those two interceptions, so not the best game by him. And again, the Cardinals, they're also kind of a middle of the road team, so I don't expect them to have like a great season. They're just going to be around 500. Their quarterback, Kyler Murray, he's good at times. He's flashy. He makes exciting plays, but I don't think he's a long term solution as a quarterback for the Cardinals. So it'll be interesting to see what the Cardinals do with Kyler Murray going forward. But nonetheless, it was a good first game of NFL Week 4. So the game that I was most excited about watching this weekend was the early Sunday morning game that was in Dublin, Ireland, between the Minnesota Vikings and Carson Wentz and the Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers. So this was an international game, first NFL regular season game in Dublin, Ireland. So I love to watch these international games just because they have a different feel and vibe to them. And I like how the NFL is just trying to grow internationally. And they started out the season having the game in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And now they're having all these different international games across different countries in Europe. So just definitely cool to watch. Different vibe, different stadium. The fans are pretty awesome. So very exciting game here. And I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan and Aaron Rodgers fan. So it looks like the Steelers got the win 24-21. They're 3-1 on the season. The Vikings fall to 2-2. So I'm definitely a happy man with these results. So let's take a look at the game leaders in this one. So for the Minnesota Vikings, Carson Wentz, he went 30 for 46, 350 yards, two touchdowns, two interceptions. And Justin Jefferson, wide receiver, had 10 receptions for 126 yards. So it was a very good offensive game by Carson Wentz and J. Jefferson or Justin Jefferson, um, but it wasn't enough. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, Aaron Rodgers, 18 for 22, 200 yards, one touchdown, and he had a very good quarterback rating. Their running back, Kenneth Gainwell, had a really good game. He ran for 99 yards with two touchdowns. And DK Metcalf, a big, strong, fast wide receiver, had a huge game. Five receptions, 126 yards with a touchdown. So, very good game, honestly, by both teams here. So, in this one, anytime Aaron Rodgers is playing, I got to watch the game just because I'm a big Aaron Rodgers fan. And the Steelers played a lot better in this game. Um, the first three games that they had like serious issues, whether it was on the defensive end or offensive end. But in this game, they kind of put it all together, and it was definitely their best game of the season so far. So, as a Steelers fan, as an Aaron Rodgers fan, I'm definitely bullish on the Steelers. They improved to 3-1. They're in the number one spot in their division. So, a very good start to the season, to the first quarter of the season. And I think the Steelers are just going to get better from here. The teams that are in their division are the Bengals, and they have Joe Burrow, who's injured for several months. They have the Ravens, who fell to 1-3, and also the Browns, who are not very good. So I think this is as good of a start to the season as the Pittsburgh Steelers could have hoped for, but we still have a lot of season left, and we'll see if the Steelers stay in first place in their division. For the Vikings, so their backup quarterback Carson Wentz was in this one with JJ McCarthy injured. Um, he played pretty well. I mean, the Steelers, dominated this game, but they made it interesting towards the end, and that's where Carson Wentz got a lot of his numbers from. But nonetheless, they did come back and make the game very close. Um, they had a chance to tie the game at the very end, possibly take the lead, but the Steelers' defense stepped up and did not let the Vikings score at the very end. So, very good job by the Steelers, by Mr. Rogers, and let's keep the wins coming. All right, guys. So, the next game we're going to talk about is the matchup we had between the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. So this was also one of the better games of the weekend. These two teams are two of the best teams in the NFC, so it was definitely a good game to watch. So in this one, the Eagles pulled out the win 31-25. The Eagles are undefeated at 4-0 on the season, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers dropped to 3-1. So in this game, I mean, the Eagles played a lot better than the Buccaneers throughout most of the game. Towards the end, the Bucks made it close and interesting, but Baker Mayfield threw a interception at the goal line, and that was pretty much the game. So disappointing loss from my hometown team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but it was against the Super Bowl champs, the Eagles, and they did not have Mike Evans in this one as well. So not too bad of a loss for the Bucks. So let's take a look at some of the game leaders in this one. All right, so for the Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts, he went 15 for 24, 130 yards with 2 touchdowns. Dallas Goedert, tight end, had 2 receiving touchdowns for them. On the other side, for the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield went 22 for 40, 289 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And looks like Bucky Irving had a pretty good game rushing and also receiving over 100 yards with a touchdown. So this was definitely a good game to watch. Again, two of the better teams in the NFC. So anytime the former Super Bowl champs play the Eagles, it's a good game. I love watching Baker Mayfield play for the Buccaneers. He just plays like with a little bit of a attitude and an edge, and I just love that about his game. Also, I love his escapability. Uh, When you think he's about to get sacked, he just kind of wiggles his way out of the pressure and either makes a big play with his legs or makes a big throw down the field. So love watching Baker Mayfield play. Mike Evans did not play in this one because he was injured, but they could have definitely used him. So not the worst loss for the Tampa Bay Bucks. They lost to the former Super Bowl champs. They played pretty good and made the game interesting at the end. And I'm still definitely bullish on the Bucks, and they got a good season ahead of them. For the Philadelphia Eagles, I mean, what can you say? They're 4-0. Um, but just for the Eagles, some things that they're struggling with is their rushing game. So Saquon Barkley is not having the success that he had last year as far as rushing. So that's kind of disappointing for them. And also their star wide receiver, AJ Brown, he did not have a lot of receiving yards in this one. And he's been known to complain about that. And he also made a comment on X after the game referencing that. So I think the Eagles offense has a lot to work on. They need improvement on their running game. They need to expand their passing game. They need to involve AJ Brown more. And I think that'll make the Eagles even more dangerous. Their defense is really good, so I don't have any worries there. But as far as the offense, they gotta definitely spice things up there and not be so boring on offense. But nonetheless, even having said that, they're 4-0 on the season, so I think the Eagles are probably the best team in the NFL right now, from what I can tell. And just imagine once their running game picks up and once they start actually throwing the ball more, they're just going to be even more dangerous. So look out for the Eagles. All right. So another exciting game that I was definitely looking forward to was the matchup between the Los Angeles Chargers with Justin Herbert versus the New York Giants with Jackson Dart. So this was definitely an exciting game to watch because the New York Giants, in the first three games, their starting quarterback was Russell Wilson, but because of his poor play, specifically in game three, they decided to name their rookie quarterback Jackson Dart as the starting quarterback for this game, for game four. So it was definitely must watch TV just because Jackson Dart had a really good preseason, probably the best preseason of any rookie quarterback. So I think a lot of people were anticipating that if the Giants struggle, that they're going to start Jackson Dart. And that's exactly what happened. And as we can see here, the Giants and Dart actually got their first win of the season, 21-18 over the Chargers. The Giants are 1-3 on the season, and the Chargers fall to 3-1. So kind of crazy. They insert him, and the Giants get a win right away against a very good Chargers team. So I think this was a huge upset of the week. Let's take a look at the game leaders on this one. So for the Chargers, Justin Herbert, 23 for 41, 203 yards, one touchdown, one interception. Their running back, Omarion Hampton, had a good game. He had 128 yards rushing with a touchdown. And for the Giants, the numbers are not going to stand out, but Jackson Dart, he went 13 for 20, 111 yards. He had one touchdown. And he also had 10 carries and ran for 54 yards and one rushing touchdown. So, pretty good game by Jackson Dart. Again, these numbers they don't look very impressive. But if you watch the game, he made some critical plays when he needed to. So, I was definitely impressed by his first game in the NFL. Their running back, Scatterbo, had 79 yards rushing. All right. Yeah, so I was definitely surprised by this score just because going into it, I felt like the Chargers were one of the best, if not the best team in the NFL, and that the Giants were one of the worst, if not the worst team in the NFL. So definitely Probably the biggest upset of this weekend, NFL Week 4, is this game. But with the NFL, that's why you watch, because you never know what's going to happen. And anything is possible in any game on any weekend. So I think in this one, what probably stood out was that the Giants defense played really good. And offensively, Jackson Dart, again, didn't have the biggest numbers, but he used his legs a lot of different times when he needed to get a first down, to escape the pressure. So he was just good, making good, like, mental decisions, and wasn't, making a lot of rookie mistakes. So I think the Giants definitely might have found their quarterback of the future. It is still a little too early, but I think Jackson Dart is going to have a bright future with the Giants. I think the Giants might have found their quarterback for the long term. So we'll see what happens with the Giants. For the Chargers, this was just kind of a little bump in the road. They're going to recover from this one, and Justin Herbert and the Chargers will win a lot of games going forward, and they'll be just fine. So nothing really too bad to say about the Chargers in this one. So we had a game between the Cleveland Browns and the Detroit Lions. So just want to spend a little time on this game as well. So this was a matchup between Joe Flacco of the Browns versus Jared Goff of the Lions. So the Lions get another win. They improved to 3-1 on the season. The Browns fall to 1-3. So let's take a look at some of the game leaders on this one. For the Browns, Joe Flacco, he went 16 for 34, 184 yards, two interceptions, zero touchdowns. And for the Detroit Lions, Jared Goff, he went 16 for 27, 168 yards, two touchdowns, and one interception. Jameer Gibbs had 91 yards rushing with a touchdown, and Amon-Ra St. Brown had 70 yards receiving with two touchdowns. So another very good offensive game by the Detroit Lions, Jared Goff and Jameer Gibbs and St. Brown. So the Lions are looking really good. So just some things I want to say about these two teams in this game. So again, for the Detroit Lions, they're playing really well, just like they did last season. Um, Going into this season, they had a lot of changes as far as like new defensive and offensive coordinators. So we just weren't sure what the Lions were going to look like this season, but they're playing really well. They only had one bad game this season and one loss. So I think the Lions are going to have a really good season. Their offense is really good. When Jared Goff gets protection, he always has a big game, it seems like. He's got probably the best running game or running game duo in the NFL. And Amon-Ra St. Brown has the most receiving touchdowns in the NFL. So they're just a very good team. I love their head coach, Dan Campbell. He's a very, very good coach. So the Lions are one of the best teams in the NFC. On the other side, the Cleveland Browns, 1-3 on the season. Joe Flacco is having a so-so season. So just with the Browns, I'm just wondering if they're gonna make a quarterback change like the New York Giants did with Jackson Dart. So I'm definitely interested in that, um, to see if they go with Dylan Gabriel or even Shador Sanders. I think it's gonna happen sooner rather than later. So I'll definitely be watching that as far as the Browns. even though they're not a very exciting team. Just want to see how those rookie quarterbacks perform. All right, that's pretty much it on this game here. So the next game we're gonna talk about is the game between the New Orleans Saints and the Buffalo Bills. So this was Spencer Rattler of the Saints versus Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. And the Bills get a big win, 31 to 19. They're undefeated on the season at 4 and 0, and the Saints are winless on the season at 0 and 4. So let's take a look at some of the game leaders in this one. For the Saints, Rattler went 18 for 27, 126 yards with a touchdown. Alvin Kamara had 70 yards rushing. And for the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen went 16 for 22, 209 yards, two touchdowns, one pick. Their running back, James Cook, had 117 yards rushing with one touchdown. All right, so just another good, solid game by Josh Allen. He gets the Bills to 4 and 0 on the season. Um, I think the Bills and the Eagles are the only two undefeated teams in the NFL so far. So Josh Allen continuing to play like an MVP. He's basically carrying his team. He doesn't really have a lot of star players on his team like a lot of other quarterbacks do. He's got a solid running game with James Cook, and he's got a solid defense. So another very impressive start to the season for Josh Allen, and he's playing like an MVP that he is. For the Saints, one of the worst teams in the NFL this season. So not sure if Spencer Rattler is going to be their quarterback of the future, but Saints are they might not win a game this season, so we'll see if that happens. Another good game to watch this weekend was the game between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the San Francisco 49ers. So this was Trevor Lawrence versus Brock Purdy, who came back from his injury. So, pretty interesting game here. These two teams don't play each other too often. So, it was an interesting quarterback battle. The Jags and Trevor Lawrence get a win, 26 to 21. They improved to 3 and 1 on the season, and the 49ers dropped to 3 and 1. So let's take a look at the game leaders in this one. For the Jags, Trevor Lawrence, he went 21 for 31, 174 yards, one touchdown. Their running back, Travis Etienne, had a really good game. He had 19 carries for 124 yards and a touchdown. And Brian Thomas had 5 receptions for 49 yards. So just watching this game and the running back, Travis Etienne, he he's one of the best running backs in the NFL. He's got such a good combination of speed, power, and finesse. I just love watching him go on these big runs. Um, I think he's definitely grown a lot this season, and he's become one of the best running backs in the NFL. So that's definitely been good to see for the Jags. For the 49ers, Brock Purdy, he went 22 for 38, 309 yards, two touchdowns, two interceptions. Christian McCaffrey looks like had a good game running and receiving, over 100 yards total with one touchdown. So Christian McCaffrey is playing good for the 49ers like usual. So I'm definitely a big Jags fan. I think they're an exciting team to watch. I think the combination of Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback, and Travis Etienne, the running back, they've been together for a few years now. So I just love watching that duo play together. Their offense is pretty exciting to watch. And they also have exciting wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. So I just think the Jags are one of the more flashy teams to watch if you like offense. And I think Trevor Lawrence is playing really well. I know he's had a lot of issues, specifically with turnovers so far in his career, but he's definitely a good quarterback. He's definitely a franchise quarterback for the Jags. And the Jags are sitting pretty at 3-1. So I think I think they're meshing well with their new head coach, Liam Cohen. I think he's the perfect fit for Trevor, and their defense is also playing really good with Josh Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker. So I think the Jags are back to playing winning football. For the 49ers, Brock Purdy had kind of a so-so game in this one. He did have the two touchdowns, but also two picks. So not the best game by him, but they are still 3-1 on the season. And I think the 49ers will be just fine going forward. All right, so now we finally got to the best game of the weekend, and this was the most anticipated game to watch. So this was a big matchup between two heavyweights in the AFC. So we had the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson play the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. So this was must watch TV, and it definitely did not disappoint. So we can see in this one that the Chiefs got the win 37-20. The Chiefs are 500 on the season at 2-2, and the Ravens they dropped to 1-3 on the season. So big game here. So let's take a look at the game leaders on this one. See who played better, Mahomes or Jackson. So for the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, he went 14 for 20, 147 yards, one touchdown, one interception. And he also had 6 carries for 48 yards. He did get injured in this one, and then Cooper Rush came in and finished off the game. So can't really compare them equally since Lamar was out a significant amount of time. But nonetheless, um, for the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, he went 25 for 37, 270 yards, four touchdowns, zero interceptions, quarterback rating 124.8. So excellent game by Mahomes. I think this is probably his best game of the season. In this game, their wide receiver Xavier Worthy came back from his injury, and he had a pretty big game. Looks like 5 receptions, 83 yards. So a very good game by Mahomes and the Chiefs in this one. All right, so what else do I want to say about this game? So, this was a big game for both teams just because heading into it, both of the teams were 1-2, which means, one of the two teams would be 1-3 after this game, unless it was a tie, but that's rare. So, going down to a record of 1-3, just from like a historical perspective and statistically, when a team falls to 1-3, the probability of them making the playoffs goes down significantly. And that's why this was a big game, because both of these teams are two of the best teams in the NFL. And just considering that there's a chance that one of these two teams is not even going to make the playoffs is what made this game very important for both of them, and why it was must watch TV. So in this one, the Chiefs played a lot better, as you could obviously from the score. They pretty much dominated the whole game. Um, Lamar went out with an injury to his hamstring. So, but even before that, the Chiefs were playing a lot better than the Ravens. So, not sure what's going on with Lamar Jackson. It seems like every time he's in a big game, whether it's like versus Mahomes, versus Joe Burrow, or if he's in the playoffs, he just doesn't get the job done in the biggest moments. Like during the regular season, he has really good numbers statistically, and he's like the MVP during the regular season. Like he's the most exciting player to watch, and we've never seen anything like him before. But when these big moments come up, whether it's in the regular season or in the playoffs, when he plays Mahomes or Josh Allen, he just always seems to struggle. And that's been the case now for several years. So, yeah, I think he just can't get over the hump versus these top three quarterbacks, whether it's Mahomes, Josh Allen, or Burrow. So, not sure what's going on there, but definitely a disappointing loss for the Ravens. They're 1-3 on the season. I mean, they're still not out of it. If they just get a couple wins, they're right back in it. So I'm definitely not going to write the Ravens off. But this was a big test for them, a prove it game, and they unfortunately failed in this one. Um, so we'll see what happens going forward. So for the Chiefs, best game of the season for Patrick Mahomes. He played like the best quarterback in the NFL that he is. He got his wide receiver back, Xavier Worthy. They had a lot of connection throughout the game, so I think the Chiefs are looking good again. Um, they're going to get their other wide receiver, Rasheed Rice, back soon, so I think the Chiefs are going to be just fine. After these first few games, they looked pretty bad, and there was a lot of doubters, but they're going to be just fine. They're going to be one of the best teams in the NFL, and as long as they got Patrick Mahomes, I think they're probably the best team in the AFC. So we'll see what happens going forward with these two big teams with Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and we'll see where they end up. All right, so another exciting game over the weekend was the matchup between the Chicago Bears and the Las Vegas Raiders. So this was Caleb Williams of the Bears versus Geno Smith of the Raiders. So very, very close game here. The Bears get a 1 point win. They're 500 on the season at 2-2. The Raiders fall to 1-3. Let's take a look at the game leaders in this one and see how Caleb Williams played. So Caleb Williams for the Bears, he went 22 for 37, 212 yards, one touchdown, one interception. Their running back, DeAndre Swift, had one rushing touchdown. Their wide receiver, Odunze, had 69 yards receiving with one touchdown. For the Raiders, Geno Smith went 14 for 21, 117 yards, two touchdowns, three interceptions. Their running back, Ashton Genty, had a really good game, 21 carries, 138 yards, one touchdown. So, big game there by the rookie running back for the Raiders. All right. So, what do I want to say about this game? So, Caleb Williams with the Chicago Bears, he's one of the most exciting quarterbacks to watch, just because there's been so much noise about him. Last season, he didn't have the best year. And then this season, he gets a new head coach, Ben Johnson. We want to see how that's going to look. He kind of had a rough preseason, and then a couple of games early in the season, he struggled, and it's just been a lot of noise around Caleb, whether he's going to be a superstar, whether he's a bust. So I just kind of like to watch him each week just to see how he progresses. Um, and he's done that each week. So each going from week 1 to week 4 now, he's definitely improved each week. He looks a lot better on the field. He's making better decisions, and the game just looks a lot cleaner for him. So nice to see Caleb progress each week, and I think he's going to be just fine. And the team is 500 on the season, so 2 wins, 2 losses. That's pretty good. So I think the Bears are going to be just fine. Caleb will be just fine, and I think the Bears have a legit chance of making the playoffs. For the Raiders, tough loss for them. So in this game, the Raiders were gonna were kicking a game-winning field goal, but the Bears were able to block the kick and get the win. So this game could have gone either way, um, for either of the teams, but the Raiders lose this one. Their quarterback, Geno Smith, had three interceptions. Just me personally, like Geno's a solid quarterback, but he's not a long term solution for the Raiders. Um, he always has these games where he has a lot of interceptions, and I just don't think he's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Um, he'll win you some games here and there, but he's not on the level of the other elite quarterbacks. So I don't think the Raiders are going to have a good season this year. Um, so we'll see if they stick with Geno Smith long term or not. So another very highly anticipated game of the weekend was the Sunday night football matchup between the Green Bay Packers and the Dallas Cowboys. So this was Jordan Love of the Packers versus Dak Prescott of the Cowboys. It was Micah Parsons of the Packers versus Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys, who traded Micah to the Packers earlier this season. So this was definitely a must-watch game. A lot of headlines, storylines, drama in this one. So if you're a football fan, this was definitely a game you had to tune into. And the game definitely did not disappoint. A lot of offense. You can see here 40 to 40. It was a little disappointing that it ended in a tie, but nonetheless, it was a good game to watch. So let's take a look at the game leaders in this one. For the Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love, he went 31 for 43, 337 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. So a really good game by Jordan Love. Their running back, Josh Jacobs, 86 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns. He also had 71 yards receiving, so very, very good game by Jacobs. And in this one, Micah Parsons also had a sack as well on the defensive side. For the Cowboys, Dak Prescott went 31 for 40, 319 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, quarterback rating 124.9. Their running back, Williams, at 85 yards receiving with a touchdown. George Pickens, their newly acquired wide receiver, had a really good game, best game of the season for him, with 134 yards receiving with 2 touchdowns. So, as we can see on here, I mean, pretty much everyone played really well in this game. Like Jordan Love had one of his best games, Josh Jacobs as well, Dak Prescott, amazing game as well. So, this was just a really good game to watch. For the Cowboys, their star wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb, was out with an injury. So, George Pickens stepped up and had a huge game. And just as far as Dak Prescott, um, it seems like every time there's a big game on the line that Dak Prescott plays his best in those moments. So, like earlier, I was saying that Lamar Jackson, when the big games are on, for whatever reason, he just doesn't play his best. Dak Prescott is kind of the opposite of that. He's not as good as Lamar Jackson, but in these big moments, these big games, like Dak produces and it seems like always has a good game. So I was definitely very impressed by Dak Prescott, and I think they had a really good offensive game. So in this game, I think a lot of people thought the Packers would just easily win over the Cowboys, um, especially with CeeDee Lamb being out for the Cowboys, but that wasn't the case. Again, Dak Prescott stepped up and he made his team very competitive, and the game ended in a tie. So definitely a good game to watch. Micah Parsons had 1 sack. It wasn't his best game, but he did get that 1 sack. So that was good to see. Um, Jerry Jones watching the game from his suite. So it was just definitely a good, entertaining game, with some drama filled, with some emotions filled. So definitely one of the better games of the weekend. So the Packers are 2-1-1. So everybody was saying that they're one of the best teams in the NFL earlier in the season, but they got a loss to the Browns and now they got a tie to the Cowboys. So things have kind of cooled off for the Packers a little bit. They don't look as good as they did in the first couple weeks. Um, the Cowboys are not much better. They're 1-2-1. So I think the Cowboys are just kind of a middle of the road team. It's kind of hard to predict where they're going to end up, but I think they'll make the playoffs. They have a lot of good players, and we'll see where these two teams end up. All right. So the last two games that we're going to talk about are two games that are going to be played tonight on Monday Night Football. So we're going to have the New York Jets play the Miami Dolphins. So this is going to be Justin Fields or Tyrod Taylor versus Tua Tagovailoa. And in the second game, we're going to have the Cincinnati Bengals play the Denver Broncos. So that's going to be Jake Browning, the backup for the Bengals, versus Bo Nix of the Denver Broncos. So, not the sexiest games to watch, but let's see if we can talk about each game and make some predictions. So, it looks like the Jets are 0-3 on the season. Miami Dolphins are also 0-3. So, these are two of the worst teams in the NFL. Um, Not sure who's going to play for the Jets, but either way, Justin Fields or Tyrod Taylor, not too much of a difference there. For the Dolphins, we mentioned Tua is their quarterback. He's got Tyreek Hill, so they're playing. It looks like in Miami. So on the first game, I'm gonna go ahead and go with the Miami Dolphins winning and getting their first win of the season. And therefore I expect the New York Jets to fall to 0-4 on the season and be one of the worst teams in the NFL this season. All right, second game, we got Jake Browning versus Bo Nix. Well, the Cincinnati Bengals are in the same division as the team that I'm rooting for, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So because of that, I want the Bengals to lose. And I think they are going to lose just because they have their backup quarterback instead of Joe Burrow. The Denver Broncos are pretty good with Bo Nix. I like their head coach, Sean Payton. So I'm going to be rooting for, and I expect the Denver Broncos to win this game versus the Bengals. So we shall see what will happen on Monday Night Football. All right. So the last thing that we're going to take a look at for today is just the overall standings in the NFL in each division after week 4. So we're 25% or quarter of the way through the NFL season, just a little less than that. So I think we have a good sample size where we can take a look at the standings and try to get a little bit of a picture of who the good teams are, who the bad teams are, who's in between, and just where the overall NFL season is headed. So let's jump into that. So we're going to start with the AFC, and let's take a look at the AFC East. So in the AFC East, we got the Buffalo Bills in first place. They're 4-0 on the season. Josh Allen playing like an MVP. We got the New England Patriots at 2-2 with Drake May. They're a solid team. And then two winless teams, New York Jets and Miami Dolphins, who we mentioned played tonight. So one of them should get a win after tonight. So I think this division is pretty clear. The Buffalo Bills are the clearly the best team, and they're going to win this division. The New England Patriots are not on their level, but they're a solid team with Drake May, and they're going to have a good season. So I think the Patriots definitely have a chance of making the playoffs. And the other two teams, the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins, are two of the worst teams in the NFL. They're not going anywhere this season. So AFC East, easy division to predict on this one. Let's take a look at the AFC North, the division that I'm most interested in because of my Pittsburgh Steelers. So this is an interesting division as well, just because Baltimore Ravens, who are I still think the best team in the division, they're 1-3. Not sure what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson's injury. if he's going to be back soon or miss some time. We got the Cincinnati Bengals, who are also supposed to be one of the best teams in the division, but their quarterback, Joe Burrow, is out for several months. We got the Cleveland Browns. They're 1-3. They have issues at quarterback play. Not sure if they're going to put in Dylan Gabriel or Shador Sanders. And then we have the Pittsburgh Steelers in first place. My team with Aaron Rodgers, they're 3-1. So just as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan and an Aaron Rodgers fan, I don't think we could have hoped for a better start to the season. The team is 3-1, first place in the division. All these other teams have like issues, injury issues. The Browns have quarterback issues. So this is a hopeful situation for a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, but I think the Ravens are going to bounce back. So I still think the Ravens are going to win this division. I think the Steelers will be in second place. I think the Bengals will be third, and the Browns will be in fourth place. So I think there's going to be a lot of changes in this division. So even though my Steelers are in first place, I think the Ravens are going to take them over at some point in the season. All right, AFC South. Colts are in first place. They lost their first game of the season. The Jags are also 3-1. Texans 1-3. Tennessee Titans 0-4. So in this one, I mean, the Colts and Jags are definitely the two of the best teams in this division. I think the Texans with CJ Stroud have a chance to catch them and play better the rest of the season. And the Tennessee Titans are one of the worst teams in the NFL. They're going to stay in fourth place in this one. So I think those top three teams, they're going to be close at the very end, um, with the Texans having a chance to make things competitive in the division. AFC West, Chargers are 3-1 in first place. The Chiefs are 2-2. Denver Broncos are in third place. Raiders in fourth place. So I think it's gonna stay like this, except that the Chiefs will be in first place and the Chargers in second at the end. I think the Chiefs are a better team than the Chargers. I just trust them more. And the other two teams, the Broncos and Raiders, they're just not on the same level as the Chargers and Chiefs. All right, let's jump over to the NFC. So NFC East, the Eagles are 4-0. They and the Bills are the only undefeated teams in the NFL. They're going to win this division. Commanders, Cowboys, and Giants. That'll be tough. Each of these teams has issues, so I'm not sure who's going to finish after the Eagles, but definitely the Eagles will win this division. NFC North, also a lot of competition there. Lions, Packers, Vikings, Bears. All of these teams have at least 2 wins. I think the Lions and Packers are clearly the two best teams. Vikings and Bears have younger quarterbacks, and they're just not on the same level as the Lions and Packers. So I think this division will stay the way it is right now. NFC South, we got the Bucks, Falcons, Panthers, Saints. This is probably the worst division in the NFL, um, other than the Bucks that are in it. The Bucks are a very good team. They're going to win this division. But the other three teams, the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Saints, are probably three of the worst teams in the NFL. So, I mean, the Falcons, They have 2 wins on the season. They're playing well, but I don't have a lot of faith in them. So the Bucks will win this division easily. And in the NFC West, 49ers, Seahawks, Rams, and Cardinals. So this one's also tough to predict. Yeah, it's I think the Cardinals will stay in fourth place. I think they're the worst team in the division. I think Seahawks will be third. And I think the 49ers and Rams are the two best teams in the division. So I think whichever one you want to put first or second, I think that's how things will shake out in the NFC West. All right, guys. So that's pretty much all I wanted to cover for today. So we took a look at NFL Week 4 action. We had some amazing games, amazing headlines, storylines, amazing performances by certain players. So I definitely enjoyed the weekend. If you guys found value in this video, again, subscribe to my YouTube channel so that I can continue making these videos. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.